Friends, family, ladies, gentlemen, atheists, fanatics, animals, aliens, fugitives, welcome to Soul Mechanics. Step into my office. That's right, I got this place cleaned up. We had a a maintenance inspection for the building because we had a new owner. So my roommate and I had to clean the whole place up, and it was a mess. It was a fucking fiasco. Fiasco, stop it! It was a fiasco. Fiasco's messing with my shit. Anyways, I have a few announcements to make before we get into this video. One, we got involved with a certain operative recently. I don't want to disclose any information about him because he's kind of like a spy. And I don't know what he's doing or how he's doing it, but somehow he's boosting the channel hugely and in just the right areas, very strategically. And we dealt a huge blow the other day with this, might have been yesterday. Did some major damage, which I want to make it clear that, you know, when I say things like this, there is no actual battle transpiring in reality. The battle that we're waging is against the concept of the battle. We're not actually attacking any people or persons or communities or anybody's channels or anything like that. We're not intending to attack anybody. What we're attacking is the construct, the value system that is keeping us pinned down, that is arresting us, the prison bars around us, that, you know, the invisible prison. That's what we're attacking. We're trying to break free from this system that's been manipulating us for so long. Now, we put some say we applied just a certain amount of leverage to a specific area of interest, and it's going to have magnanimous repercussions in the future, which is not the only move in play. I like to make note that the moves that I make here are very precisely calculated, but it's not just me calculating these moves and making these plans. Of course, I have you know, things don't always go to plan. Things fuck up all the time. Other people step out, people step in. Opportunities present themselves. Challenges get the better of us. I do have, you know, a plan B, C, and all the way through Z locked up and ready to rock and roll, but I'm not the only director in play in this regard. The world does have our back. It's working with us, and there are in fact several major events coming up in the near future throughout the course of the next year or so that are going to be extremely beneficial to our cause and assist in boosting our reach, boosting our audience, just boosting our authenticity for the most part, and getting us going. People are going to start taking interest in what we're doing here due to these few events that the world has provided, that the living world is putting into play for us throughout the course of the next year. And things are going to blow up, so you might want to jump aboard, man. If you're watching, get in early, start getting involved, comment, like, subscribe, you know, support. And join in. You're welcome to add whatever you want. If you dislike the videos, hit a dislike button and tell us why you don't like it. You know, share ideas that you have. Tell us what you think about it. You guys are all, anybody that's watching, you're involved in making this happen. We're developing this together. So get involved early so that when this shit blows up, you can say, yeah, I was part of the OG crew, and I'll be like, fucking A, that dude was with us. That dude was down from the get. Or that lady, could be a lady. We like the ladies. I like the ladies. Anyways, yeah, basically, this is this is like a kind of a life-size chess game, and we've made some moves that are going to cause for a kind of a domino effect that will lead to certain values coming into play in society that are going to boost our I'm not sure what to call it. Boost, I guess you'd just say boost our reputation, boost our ability to get through to people. It's going to open up some channels. But for the most part, you know, the initiative, we're still working for the initiative. However, this is not to be regarded, and my presentation is not to be regarded as representative of the initiative. It's a course for the initiative's curriculum. These are courses for the initiative's curriculum, but where it comes to theology and such and the concept of God, this is my personal ordeal and vendetta, and it's not to be considered as representative of the initiative. You don't have to use the same terms as me. You don't have to think the same things as me. But this technology that we are making use of will be beneficial to you if you decide to make use of it. You can call it whatever you want. You can deal with it in any way you choose to, but it's going to be a hell of a lot more effective for you if you get personal with it. So, in any case, also another two other announcements. One, I don't know if I said this before, but Little J has issued an ultimatum where I will have to quit smoking on the 22nd of this month, or he will no longer engage the training. So, for the sake of Little J and all the kids and the future of the initiative and soul mechanics, I'm going to have to quit smoking on the 22nd. If anybody catches me smoking, bust my ass on it, because I don't have an operator to keep me in line right now. So, help me out there. If you see me fucking up, stop me. The other announcement is our hidden contest, our spotters contest, our spotters challenge. That challenge is in secular theology. This, of course, is principle dynamics, but throughout the course of principle dynamics, and most especially in this video, I'm going to be equipping you with the values that are required to spot and take advantage of these challenges, and there are rewards. We do have actual material object rewards for the people who win these contests. So the first one, it should be pretty obvious. If you're a spotter, you should have already made note of it. But the first person that can tell me what the current theme of secular theology is. Remember, a theme is something recurring, something that is present and prescient in every single episode. First person that can tell me the theme of secular theology at this point will get an amazing reward, as well as other rewards, I'm certain, from the world. We promise that. Synchronistic rewards will come your way via the laws of attraction, via soul mechanics and principle dynamics, but we will also be offering you an actual surprise gift that I promise you is going to be hella beneficial for you. Within the first 20 minutes of receiving it, it will alter your life in a positive manner forever. It's a very cool something. It's a surprise, but it's a very cool something. So those are the announcements. Let's get into it. This video we're talking about the thought text, and I'd like to say we're talking specifically about primers. Primers you see used with hypnosis, you see used with mentalists, you see used with psychiatry. Primers are used all over the place. Now we're going to give you an example of a big primer that's in play for most everybody all the time, especially if you're in any way involved with any religious or scripture-based religion, the Bible, Christianity. This is going to be, and for most people that aren't involved with it, this primer is going to be in play regardless, because it's a part of our society. It's a catalyst event. And we're going to give you that right here. We're going to illuminate it. But for anybody that thinks that these thought texts are like a conspiracy theory, you think that the mind control is bullshit, and that like the Monarch and the MK Ultra. MK Ultra was early on in Nazi regime's campaign during World War II. They started experimenting with this technology, which this is our resource technology as human entities. It's what we use to create experience itself. It's been around forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. We've always been using this. You use it every day. You just don't know that you're using it. We're going to make you aware of how you're using it and give you the ability to make use of it deliberately. But the Nazis started experimenting with forcing it, imposing it upon people, reprogramming thoughts. It's thought control. It's a thought technology. It's a psychic technology. And they were using trauma-based tactics, very invasive procedures. And this is historical inference. It's not a conspiracy theory. This actually happened. Everybody knows this. In 43 or thereabouts, we started extracting, the U.S. government and the CIA specifically started extracting German scientists and getting them to help us start playing around with the technology. By the time 1945 rolled around, our government had already released an official documentation regarding this, stating that we are experimenting with this technology, that it's very effective, that we're having results with it, and that we are going to be engaging social experimentation with it. So anybody who thinks that this is a wacky conspiracy theory, this is basic common public knowledge. You can look it up on the internet. It's not even hidden, let alone secret conspiracy. So this is just basic shit. It's out there. It's all over the place. We're going to show you how it works. So the thing about that, before I go ahead, the people that use this, especially the government people, they're going to tell you what they're doing. Like I said, they release that document. They're always going to be telling you what they're doing as they do it, or even before they do it. They kind of have to. It's like a liability issue. It's really, hypothetically, this technology would not work without your approval. So they tell you, it's just you're distracted. That's part of what they're doing. It's kind of like a scam. They sell you on this. You don't even know it's happening. But yeah, you okayed this. You said okay for them to do this. You allowed for it. Anyways, what we're talking about here with the thought text is what we're calling spot casting. Spot casting as opposed to spell casting. Spell casting, anybody who doesn't believe in magics, we're going to make a video to describe the science behind that, how and why it works the way it does. And it is effective, but the thing is that spell casting is kind of imposing values and creating new value systems. It's putting new systems of value into play. Whereas spot casting is more of like a displacement aspect. Spot casting is maneuvering values that are already in play, and for the most part, essentially creating synchronicities. It's orchestrating or designing synchronistic events for other people via a kind of a hypnosis, the laws of attraction, causing for somebody's mind to make use of certain values in a certain way. It works the same as magic and spellcasting, but it's safer, it's simpler, it's easier, and as it says itself, it's done on the spot. So this inference of it, this is actually a spell. What we're describing here, this is actually a cast spell. This is a hard cast, what we call a hard cast. It's in the realm of spot casting, we would call the use of something like this being as a composite lock is the term that I would use for it. And basically it's a series of associative values that all reinforce each other and become a kind of a circuit implication, which this technology works via association and implication. And these values are going to line up, each one of them. The two things that we have to keep in mind in play is that the brain, when you see, like, for example, when you read a story, like the story we went over in secular theology with the Garden of Eden, if you read that story and you identify a protagonist character or even several protagonist characters that the perspective is on them, your brain's going to identify with them as being the first person perspective. That's why we try to use this first person perspective. That's why the onlyness concept is so important, because your brain works that way. It's identifying with the object of inference that you've placed your attention on as being the self. And it's also experiencing things backwards. Something happens and then the brain interprets and explains it. So these values are reinforcing each other kind of retroactively. Each value retroactively reinforces the value that was put in play prior to it. So what we have to begin with is, with the story of Eden, is the origin. That's the primary value there. It is an origin story. So from that point forward, that's locked in. Anything that you experience thereafter, it's going to come from out of this. This is going to be the first value in play, this composite lock situation, the scenario that's created here. And then what you have coming out of that is, firstly, the God figure, which is like a parental reprimanding figure, a figure of authority. We have the concept of an authority figure in play, looking down on us, judging us, and we have to behave accordingly to it. That's the concept that's introduced here. And then next to that, we have the man being created from dust or clay, and especially woman being created from a piece of man, which again is not the actual story, but that's what we know of it. That's what most people know. And this is suggesting that we are nothing, lesser than nothing, that we're waste, that we're useless tools to be used by this authority figure. And that's what our brain's interpreting. That's what this story is telling us, that we are nothing and that we exist only to appease this figure of authority. And women even more so are subjugated to man. So we have therein afterwards, we have the serpent and we have the fruit being the experience of life. The brain has to interpret it that way. There's no other ultimate conclusion to come to. The fruit of the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which the tree of life we missed. We're going to go back over it again. We're going to go back from Genesis all the way up through and cover this again and get what we missed. But for the most part, the story as it's told references the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the fruit of that is experience or is responsibility, essentially. That when you eat of this, you understand the difference between good and evil, which is the difference between right and wrong. The brain identifies the difference between acceptable and shitty. And so that this is a morality issue that's put into play. We now have a morality issue, a morality effect in play. And this thereby gives us the responsibility of deciding what is morally viable. And again, we are nothing, but we have to make this responsible decision as to what's viable whilst we have this authority figure watching over us. See how the values are reinforcing each other? And it all comes down to the serpent represents knowledge, wisdom, represents the Kundalini impulse, the serpent fire. It represents our innate potential, and the brain knows that. And so having identified the serpent as being this trickster that deceived us, which didn't actually happen, that's a trick, that's an illusion. Even in the story, A, the serpent is never identified as being a devil or Satan, which would be the wrong terms anyway, but it's never identified as being that character. B, it did not trick Eve, it told her the truth. But we're led to believe that by the figures of authority we deal with in the church and in society. And we kind of were pushed to that idea that we have an authority figure looking down on us and that we are dust and nothing and that we have this responsibility to decide for ourselves what's morally viable. Yet this decision has to appease the authority figure. That automatically opens up our brain to suggestion. It opens us up for guiding. There's play in our bearings, and this is why we figure this mostly. This is for that usually we use the indoctrination with children, and this is why people largely convert in prison. I figure that's my idea. Actually, I mean honestly, that's my idea. Is why people convert in prison, because when people are put in prison, they're extremely vulnerable and they revert to that childlike state. That's reinforced later on in the story too. Insisting that we adopt this childlike state of being. It's because it's telling us to be obedient. Ultimately, when it goes down the line, the concept that's in play, what the story is telling us to do essentially is to discard the serpent is evil and deceptive. Our inner knowledge, our innate wisdom is evil and is not to be accepted. We have to decide to discard our responsibility, our wisdom, our power, and be obedient to the authority figure. That's what this story is telling us to do. And all of these values line up, reinforcing each other, coming down to Garden of Eden is ignorance. The Garden of Eden is bliss. Paradise equals ignorance, equals blissful ignorance, and not having to deal with responsibility. Discarding power, discarding responsibility, just being simply obedient to a master figure. That's what the story tells us to do. It suggests that we've been banished from that blissful ignorance and that we need to try and fight to get back to it. that we need to try and be obedient to the authority figures so that we can live in blissful ignorance and discard our responsibility. And that's what your brain is reading. That's what this story is telling your brain to do. The brain identifies with the lead character as being you. So with Adam and Eve, that's going to be how your brain sees it from their perspective. And these series of associative values are lining up in just such a way as to create a composite lock circuit implication. The implication being that you want to be obedient or else you will be punished. And eternal damnation is put into play immediately with the idea that Adam and Eve's children, are going to be damned forever. That's already put into play. Eternal damnation is on the line. So you want to be obedient and ignorant and irresponsible. You want to be nothing and be just controlled by the authority figure, or else you will be punished for it. That's what this story tells you to do. It tells you to be, and that's why we indoctrinate children with it. That's why people convert in prison. I'm putting, hypothetically speaking, that's what it looks like. Why people would convert in prison, because they revert to this vulnerable state. They're in fear, and so that opens them up back to this. And the thing of it is that they hide these key values by it's hidden by attaching aspects like the idea that the serpent is Satan and has deceived you, and you feel tricked by your own wisdom. You feel tricked by knowledge and intelligence because you've been tricked into thinking that this serpent is deceptive, wherein that's not the case. That's not what the story actually says, but authority figures have tricked us into thinking and feeling that way. And as I said, the story is telling you that you are this. When your brain's reading it, you can think whatever you want. What your brain is actually interpreting is that you are the Adam and Eve characters, and you are being deceived, and you need to be obedient. That's what it's telling you, first person, point blank, full stop. And that all of this together is like casting a spell on you. And it's used by, for the most part, this spell will be attached to objects of inference. It will be attached to circumstances, but for the most part, it will be attached to material objects that come into play, symbolisms that will consistently remind you of it. And when you run into these symbols, it's going to trigger that. It's going to activate that compilation. It's going to activate that. What's it called? See, another word I forget is. It's going to activate that system of values in your brain and trigger that composite lock system and cause for you to engage that program in your operating system. Every time you run into any number of the objects that this spell is going to be attached to, this hard cast is attached to, and you never know. You might run into these objects all over the fucking place. But what we can do is reprogram those objects to remind you of this, to remind you of the illumination, the enlightenment of what this actually says, what it actually means, so that you can discard that program and work for yourself, work on your own, take your own responsibility, discard the broken values, and start creating your own programs. Every time you see this object, now you have that extra value attached to it that has fixed the broken program, allowing for you to realize what's actually happening and toss it. And this is how the God concept works, people. For the atheists, I have to say, you see God as being, the concept of God as being this terrible, hateful monster figure, this disgusting monster of a creature is what the Bible shows you, and you see that. But that's just what the Bible has told you it is. It's not what it really is. And the Bible, as I'm going to illuminate as we go through this, the Bible is actually going to show you that. It's going to tell you that is what it's doing. It has to. That's how the spell works. You guys have broken the spell, the atheists, but you're still stuck. You're still being played, because now you are discarding the concept of spirituality and the God concept altogether, just because you've been given a fraudulent, broken concept of it. It's a tool. The sword is not evil. It depends on who's wielding it and what they do. The sword can murder people, but the sword can also be used to clear a path. And that is what the God concept is. It's a tool. It's our ultimate tool, and it is our very presence. So that's that's uh that's gonna be it for this video because I want to keep it as short as possible. I'm sorry, 25 fucking minutes. So sorry, but I love you guys. Thank you for watching. We'll cover more ground in secular theology pretty soon. Kila Salai, Terviuni Ciari. Namaste.